Hey all, this is PGA or Paul Gene Adam. I'm a full stack student applying for honors front end graduation. I built a holistic and parts driven buying guide for guitars that was kind of a response to some of the challenges I had when I was teaching students. I've been a player for 40 years and I oftentimes had people ask me what I look for in a guitar and how to buy them. This is a site built with React.js using Redux for global state, a lot of use state hooks for local, and the local state's mostly just on some springs. I also use some like hover effects with CSS and some things like that, which are kind of fun. And then I have one custom thing on an H3 heading that's basically playing around the y-axis, and plays about more with the transform and has some fun with it. I use a JSON server for all the data, and I'm using architecture similar to Nucamp site. I kind of looked at it as a challenge to adapt to that architecture, as you would in most entry-level jobs. I wanted to adapt to the architecture, and most of my things that I use on the site do the same thing. For example, this carousel is our front page. And this was originally a Geeks for Geeks carousel that I then modified to use with a JSON server and changed around some of the display and essentially some of the variables on it to use here. Another thing was that I did was on that page that we just saw is this flip. This was originally on the Spring site, and I had to modify the TypeScript for JavaScript for React, and I thought it would be kind of fun, and it works well there. Overall, I have a nav heading, and then I also have a title heading. The nav heading has some drop downs. I have this guide directory, which is basically similar to our campsites, but not exactly. It basically then links to a bunch of text porters that do a bunch of async fetches to get different types of cards, different types of link pages. And I do 5, and then I put them onto the site, and then I return this as a general overall, just an overall heading. I have an about page, which is kind of simple. A fully functional contact page that actually submits. I have a kind of a cool little button that you can mess around with on. I just wanted to play with some CSS and make it look like the button is moving. I got a sitemap because I can't really stand sites without a map. It's too hard to get around. And then references for when I publish, which I think is kind of useful. Getting into the code, basically you can see it's very similar using the dispatches here from the app.js. If we look at the index, we can see I got the provider, it's given access to the store, and which is kind of similar. To look at the carousel, this is kind of cool. What I did with the carousel, I had to mod it, and they originally had essentially the whole thing on one page, and so you have to mess around with it and make it into a database application. Let's see. You can recognize essentially the async approach here. Something similar with these, but when you start looking at a lot of what I did with these, I'm porting very different JSX to what we were using, and so it's kind of fun. The flip was really kind of a pain in the butt too, because this wasn't originally meant for a normal React app. Before I go, I did my CSS in a custom design so that I could change it just in the one place, not in. And it's a little different from Bootstrap, but it's the way I did on enterprise programming a long time ago. So I'm comfortable with doing that. I would probably use Bootstrap in the future, and that was one of the things that I found difficult, is applying CSS without just using the standard Bootstrap approaches was kind of a little difficult. It was a little bit different. Well, thanks for listening. I appreciate the consideration.